Morning, everybody. Welcome to the final episode of the morning meeting for this convention week. I'm at O'Hare, symbolizing the transition away from the convention. We're glad you're joining, whether you're on YouTube, watching live, or recorded, or here on the two-way platform. We're delighted. I think I can speak for Tim and Sean when I say we're truly delighted to have you here. And we'd love for you to participate in the spirit of peace, love, and understanding. If you want to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand. I see some people joining who I personally know, and I don't believe have ever been on before. So I'm delighted at that. But we'd love both the regulars who'd like to ask questions daily, as well as new people. Please raise your hand. It's a great welcoming place, and we'd love to have as much diverse participation as possible. This is not a program for centrist moderates and independents only. It's a program for people across all American thought to share ideas. And this program is about what's coming forward in the day. So we'll be backward looking a little bit about the convention, but really try to focus on what's coming up. To that end, Kamala Harris is going to Western Massachusetts today for a 2-week vacation. No kidding. That's what Michael Dukakis did after his convention in 1988 and proceeded to lose. She is taking the day off right now. The only thing on her public schedule is to fly back to D.C. Donald Trump's doing a lot of stuff today, and I'd be curious to see if they've tried her out, if they feel like he's gaining the upper hand. He's got 2 events. Now, Western time is a little confusing, but somebody's going to crowdsource and correct me. He's doing an event in Las Vegas on his tax on tips thing at 12 Pacific time. So that'd be 3 Eastern. And then the event at which he's inviting a special guest who's widely presumed to be the mercurial Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But I think it's possible that Arizona today is on Pacific time. Somebody will correct me, but that event's either at 6 Eastern or 7 Eastern. I continue to increasingly believe that this endorsement will hurt Trump, but but it's at 6 Eastern on a Friday. It's almost like a document dump. So we'll talk about that. Kennedy himself has a 2 o'clock Eastern time press conference or statement. I'm not sure what the format's going to be because it's being done by the Kennedy campaign and they're disorganized. And I doubt it would start on time, and it could even be canceled because, again, it's a Kennedy event. But that'll kick off 10 a.m. Eastern time. Chairman Powell at that Jackson Hole conference where economic elites go during the summer to talk about the economy. That'll be widely watched. President Biden's not doing a damn thing. All right. Peggy Noonan this morning column says this election is going to be about issues. Joe Klein column suggests the election is going to be about vibes. If it's about issues, the Trump campaign would prefer it. Tim, let me start with Sean. Sean, is this election going to be about the economy, inflation, the border crime, or is it going to be about vibes and when Beyonce will finally show up?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm very disappointed in that. That would upset me tremendously. Can't believe I stayed up as long as I did not to see Beyonce. Not that I can name a song. I think it's not one or the other. It's got to be policy, but delivered in a way that resonates with people. So like it's policy just sort of through a tunnel, which is here's my white paper, it doesn't sell. Policy explain to people how it impacts them, and that's where the vibe comes in. Are you the person that they want to see deliver that message? So it's a recipe. It's not one or the other. And I think the bigger question is what tone sets it. I mean, this joy thing last night, I was like, I didn't see a ton of joy in that hall last night. It was very, but I think who inspires.
I was in the hall. There was a lot of joy.
Well, okay. Well, I was
maybe what didn't show up on TV, but there was a lot of joy.
Apparently, if you're in Rhode Island, there wasn't a ton. But I mean, I guess my point is, if it's more a question of whether the immigration fear concerns about the country sells more than deciding to turn the page, and that's where I think it comes down to. But it's not one or the other. You can't get away all vibe and no policy.
Yeah. I agree with Sean. I think it is both. There's overlap. I think it is also a question of not just how you feel about the issues. So there's vibes about the issues. There's also more policy-oriented approach to the issues. I don't think rolling out white paper after white paper is the way to go. The Harris campaign obviously did that last Friday. I think they'll continue to do a couple policy rollouts to show policy chops. But yeah, I think anybody who's a political professional would be we have to admit that it's about vibes, and you saw that come through a little bit last night with talking about her biography, talking about her upbringing, her mother. We also saw it around some issues. So when we talk about January 6th or abortion or gun violence, those are very strong, emotionally charged issues that the Democrats highlighted multiple times throughout the convention. And then it's also a question of like old versus new, like who feels like you're going backwards, who feels like you're going forwards, what feels like it's future oriented. So I generally agree with Sean. I think it is a mix.
Tim, I want to ask you about two lines of attack that Republicans are keen to make in response to the vice president's speech. One is that she's not acknowledging how bad the economy is. She's not saying, and she did in her announcement address last week, which Republicans then turned into an ad where she, showing her saying things are bad. Do you think she needs to be more, I feel your pain on the economy, or not?
I think the way that she has done that and the way that she did it last night, and the way that other speakers have done it too, like Gretchen Whitmer is a very good way of doing it, which is like, I know what it's like to go to a grocery store. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to rely on neighbors to do daycare. Donald Trump's first word was chauffeur. So I think there is like I feel your pain biographical approach to that. I don't think she's going to stand up and say the economy.
Our record's bad. Yeah. And then the other thing is, sorry, Sean, do you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say the one thing that, like, look, State of the Union's convention speeches are all great. I'm sure she'll get some kind of mild little bounce coming out of this. I think we got to go back to the X factors, right? What are the things in the next 70 days that could potentially change this? So you've got, I think they dodged a massive bullet on Middle East, on what could potentially happen and how they would respond. I mean, nothing happened this week, meaning that they were able to avoid that discussion in a major way. The RFK thing, I disagree with you on. I talked to some senior folks last night. They're excited on the Trump side about this. So again, it's an X factor. Maybe you're 100% right. Maybe they're right. But I think it's these remaining X factors. And then I think what the Fed says today and how it's perceived by people, not that anyone cares that Jerome Powell says anything. How do the markets react? What do people feel about the economy? This is, in my opinion, these last few weeks of August, first couple of weeks of September, are where that vibe inside your gut settles in on whether or not you think things are going well or not. And this is probably the last hurrah. So those X factors, to me, are critical in these next probably 2 weeks about changing anybody's perception of whether or not they think we need to change stuff in this country or go back.
All right. I want more hands up, please. So again, if you haven't asked questions in the past and you'd like to be part of the conversation, please raise your hand. I want to get folks in just a minute. All right, Tim, I'm not going to ask you about the other line of attack. I want just quick answers from you guys. She didn't talk about historical first woman president, potentially first woman of color. Is being a woman of color in this race going forward an advantage, a disadvantage, or nets out to zero? Tim?
Yeah, well, I would say first, I think she had people talk about that for her. I think like Hillary Clinton's speech, obviously very, 2016 vibe to it. So she can talk about the historic nature of it without having to do it herself. I think like net, look, there are pluses and minuses. We know that the minuses are through research that people tend to view Black women as more.
Tim, don't review the literature. Just say if it's a plus or minus.
Overall, I think it is a plus. I think a chance to make history and to generate enthusiasm around that is a plus.
John, plus or minus?
Net plus, and I'll say this: I will give them credit for how they're handling it. She is a woman of color. You don't need to say it, you see it. And I think they handled it right. I think they learned from what Hillary Clinton did. The women that I talk to that are persuadable, right? I mean, again, if you're a Trump supporter, you're a Trump supporter. If you're her, with her. But I actually talk to a lot of women that just sort of feel like they're ready for this. And they're not, I mean, again, I don't think that's, but there's a vibe that's different from Hillary. When I probe them kind of the way we do on this call, and I said, what's different between 2016? You had an opportunity then. When they said, well, we didn't like her then. And so I think there's an opportunity. And at least for now, I will say that they're handling it well without putting it in the forefront. It's there. She's a woman of color. I give them credit for them not pushing it. And clearly the research shows that. So we'll see.
Wrong. Yeah. Big net plus. All right, let's talk about the.
I said, wait. We both said plus.
I know. I'm saying you're wrong because it's a big net plus.
Oh.
Big net plus. All right. Guys, do we have the electoral college thing ready? Is that something we can put up? So the only reason we care about the convention is it affects the electoral college. So I want to talk quickly about that. This is my view of where the battlegrounds stand currently. Wisconsin and Michigan advantage Harris, Nevada advantage Trump. Harris and Georgia tied, but we'll move back to Trump unless Harris sweeps. Pennsylvania and Arizona tied and likely to stay tied, and then very confused in my reporting on North Carolina and the two individual CDs about where they stand. So, two-part question, which I normally hate, but I'm going to ask it here. Sean, what do you think of where I have the states? And did anything happen in the convention that you think moves any of these states one way or the other?
I don't know that I would say tied for Michigan and Wisconsin. And again, my X factor plays into Michigan, especially with the Arab vote. The Trump edge, I agree with you on Nevada. Every time I talk to someone, I feel like it's Lucy with the football, though. People tell me, yes, he's up, but that union vote at the end is going to be the problem.
The ghost of Harry Reid never dies.
I know. So I'm with you, but I get told by everyone who actually really Clark County experts, they're like, dude, just be careful. Georgia, I think the Kemp thing yesterday, we can put a pin on that for now, but I think was huge. I agree with you on Georgia. Pennsylvania, I would say tied more. I give the edge to Arizona, to Trump. North Carolina edge. And I will say this, the Nebraska and Maine CDs, I would say the default Nebraska 2 default still goes. It's Harris. There's only one major poll out of there. I think it's hers. I still think Maine 2. I was up there a couple of weeks ago. I give that to Trump. That being said, I think those are my big X factors on election night. Where do those two go? Depending on how close this thing is, because you actually can play bar scenes where this thing ends up at 269, 269.
So Sean, basically you disagree with every one of my rankings, sounds like.
I made you feel good though. It's a Friday.
Okay. Tim, give me some love. Do you agree with any of my rankings? Sean moved them all. Sean moved them all red.
Come over to the right team.
I generally agree with this ranking, but I will say I just want to zero in on Nevada because I've worked out in Nevada multiple election cycles, and I think Sean is right. I would put Nevada now tied now and likely to stay that way for a little bit, and I think Democrats have an edge there. It's also very hard to put Nevada to the right of Arizona. Just demographically, that hasn't really happened since the 90s. You've also seen Harris consolidate young Black Latino voters. That is a huge part of the Democratic base out there. And to Sean's point, look, there's a huge turnout machine in the Culinary Union in Clark County. And I wouldn't be surprised if she won it. But the reason I have it based on my reporting is the economy has really been bad there. Housing and inflation have just killed people. And that, it has always been that way with Nevada, right? In particular, because it's a tourism-based economy that happened in the foreclosure crisis. Yeah, it's happening now. But
do you guys think Arizona is tied, or do you think somebody has the edge in Arizona?
I think Arizona is tied.
John,
I give Trump the edge there. The immigration issue is just so overwhelming there. I just have a hard time. I think last time was an issue that has been corrected. I think they saw the consequences of it. I give Trump the edge in Arizona.
And do we can see Pennsylvania's tied, Sean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That's the only one you.
Can I just say this? This went underreported because I think Pennsylvania's Secretary of State put out this Department of Elections, put out this tweet a couple days ago, just saying, "Hey, heads up, we're not probably going to know the winner of the election on election night," and then proceeded to explain why. They wanted to put a marker down, but I'm going to tell you, God forbid, I really am concerned about what's going to happen if those 19 electoral votes are decisive. Because they're trying to plant this poll. Anyway, I'm just telling you that I agree with you, and that could be a major issue on November 5th, 6th, 7th.
All right, let's bring in folks. Again, please raise your hand if you'd like to ask us a question. Almost every hand up is someone who's been on before. And again, it doesn't mean you can't be on today, but we love new people. And I believe Brandon, come on, Brandon. We'd like to say in politics. Brandon, welcome. Remind everybody where you are, who you're supporting, and ask away.
I am in Northwest Indiana, right outside of Chicago, actually 30 minutes away in Munster.
Are you from Indiana?
I actually grew up in Hawaii, but
have you developed Hoosier values?
I'd say I'm pretty Midwestern at this point for sure.
Right, good.
It's
and who are you supporting?
I have not voted, and I probably will not vote in this election. I've been kind of waiting for the one that sweeps me off my feet, and nobody's done so quite yet.
Have
Think
you,
of a
have
man
you,
without a.
did
Go
you
ahead.
vote in six, did you vote in 16 or 20?
I did not. No.
Okay. Brandon, I love that you're here, even though you don't like to vote in presidential elections. What's on your mind?
First of all, I want to say my grandfather was a professor of journalism and head of the journalism department in University of Hawaii, and this is like his dream from what he told me. He's since passed, but you remind me a lot of him, which is probably like the biggest compliment I can give.
Very nice. Aloha.
And
Thank you.
and then also, if nobody's listening to Joe Scarborough's music, it is awesome, and so pass that along.
Also true. I say plus one on that. Joe's very talented. What do you want to ask, Brandon? Appreciate both those. What do you want to ask?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you guys if you had a chance to with each candidate, and you had the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around them, and everybody who's going to vote is watching. This is a big hypothetical. You could ask them one question. What would you want to ask?
All right, Brandon, that's awesome. I'm going to have Tim do the question for Trump and Sean do the question for Harris. But Brandon, let me ask you this. What's an issue that if a presidential candidate addressed it, you would be more inclined to vote for? What is the issue you want to hear them address?
Certainly inflation, I would say, but also I don't like either one of their plans for inflation. I think a tariff wall could be disastrous, and also price controls would really negatively affect supply. I mean, it seems to be a tenuous time economically. And if I heard somebody with an economic plan that really made sense, also some humility. I just never hear this from candidates at all, saying, hey, this is a possible negative outcome that we have to worry about. But everything is the surefire plan. And
right,
things
Brandon,
don't work that way.
Let me ask you one more. I'm filling a little bit to give Tim and Sean time to come up with their questions, because I love your question. If you could make anybody in the country constitutionally eligible to be president, who would you make president? Who's your ideal president?
That is a fantastic question. I'm a bit of a man without a country, because I have a lot of conservative values, but I also, I'm like pro-life, but I also have, want universal health care. I don't know, man.
All right, I'll give you, Brandon, I'm going to give you three choices, Brandon, and then the guys are going to do. You can have The Rock, Liz Cheney, or Elizabeth Warren. Who'd you pick from that list?
I'd move.
Let's go with Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney. Okay. All right, Brandon, thank you for that. Thank you for joining. Sean, what would your question be for Kamala Harris?
Well, first of all, I just want to say this. I think that, Brandon, I love the question, because when you're in my line of work, the key to a good question, and Mark knows this because he's honed it better than anybody, is to get somebody in a position where you force them to answer an actual question. And so I love the way you phrased it. It was really well done, because I'm sitting here trying to write it out. I mean, I guess off the top of my head, what I've got down is it your goal to allow anyone who enters the United States illegally to ultimately be able to cast a ballot?
Never ask a yes/no question, Sean. That's the first rule of journalism.
See,
never an yes/no. So, but you want to, you would ask.
I should have phoned a friend.
So you would ask her about the concept of if people coming here legally should be allowed to vote. That's the idea.
If that's her stated, I want to get to the of why she's doing what she's doing, and I believe it because, yeah,
good one, Tim. You and Donald Trump, one question interview. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would ask a broad question that he could go through multiple parts and tell me yes or no, and what he likes of Project 2025. What in Project 2025 will you implement?
Or how about what you've repudiated it, but what portions? Name some things in it that you like, and tell us why.
Right. Yeah,
that'd be good. I like those. Brandon, that was awesome. Brandon, before you go, how'd you find out about two-way?
It was recommended on YouTube, but Mark, I want to hear your questions.
My questions?
Yeah, you can't.
I didn't think about it, because I thought the guys were going to do it. Let's see. I would ask Trump. You know what? I'd ask them both. I normally don't like abortion questions, but I would ask Trump. I'd say I'd ask them both the same question. In considering a woman who's pregnant and wants to terminate her pregnancy, talk about the rights of the woman and the rights of the unborn child, and how you balance the two. I would ask them both that question.
If I get a bonus,
go ahead, Brandon.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Brandon.
I just wonder if every election from here until eternity is going to be the most important election of our lifetime, or will
It normally
break
really annoys me when they say it, because they've said it in every election I've ever covered. This one, it
Yeah.
might actually be true. It's the first one where I'm willing to admit it might be true. Brandon, thank you. Come back regularly, particularly if you decide to vote. Sandra, unmute.
Yes, hi.
Say again where you're from, who you're supporting, and ask away.
Well, I live in Germany. I vote in Florida, and I'm supporting Trump. First time voting for a Republican in my life.
Did you vote for Clinton and Biden in 16 and 20?
Yes, Obama
So-
twice, Biden
Obama-
last time, and
okay,
then I
so-
regretted.
So tell us why you're voting for Trump this time.
I think he's authentic. I know what I'm getting, and I find it very infuriating that nobody's holding Kamala's feet to the fire, that she's not giving an interview. She's not able to just impulsively, when, answer questions of reporters, of journalists. And I must believe that she's hiding something.
I'm sure Tim and Sean are going to have questions for you, but why don't you ask your question first, and then they'll have at it.
So I'm wondering, I guess she's pulling the Democratic vote back to herself, what Biden wasn't able to do. But aren't people asking, what does she stand for? And when she keeps saying, I'll be doing this on the first day and be doing that on the first day, my God, you've been there for 3.5 years. I mean, she should have had a much easier time putting out her policy. So I must think there's something fishy there.
So that's the line I was going to ask him about, that Republicans are really keen on after last night's speech is and Trump brought it up in his interview with Fox, which is, if you've got all these great solutions, why haven't you been implementing them, and why don't you implement them now? Sean and Tim, you had questions for Sandra, a reaction to
The one thing I want to ask Sandra, it just sort of, if I can, Tim, is you're in Germany, you vote in Florida. Based on where do you get your information?
Oh, on the internet. I mean, I go to you, Sean. I read left, right-leaning magazines. I follow Fox. I follow CNN. I speak a lot of languages, so I read sometimes the same topics in different languages to see the point of view, perspective from different countries. And I find that they're preaching, this joy and this, I'm going to say the word socialism. I live in Europe where this is already a fact, and people are very unhappy, and it's catching up to all the governments, and some of them are making a very sharp turn back towards center right. If you look at Sweden, one of the most liberal countries in Europe, they're correcting. Denmark, they're correcting. Germany is right in the middle of a very big economic downturn. We cannot support all the giveaways that we're telling people. You'll get this, you'll get that.
Sandra, I want to get Tim in to address what you raised and explain what Kamala Harris is hiding. Tim, explain that.
Yeah. Actually, if I can just ask a question very quickly, Sandra. When you voted for Obama, Hillary, and Biden, did you like their policies?
With Obama, it was more like a feeling, because I remember my father, and I thought, he's
the original. He's the original vibes candidate.
Exactly. And I'm not going to make that error again. And I think we shouldn't be fooled, because the world is in a very bad spot right now, and we cannot just say, "Oh, I'm voting for vibes." But I can accept it maybe from an 18-year-old and under 30 who doesn't have any life experience. But
and sorry, just one more question. If she sat down for an interview and aced the interview, is there any way you would consider voting for her? Or you think there's like too many blanks that are not filled in, or you couldn't do it?
I don't think she would ace an interview unless she has something put in her ear. I just don't believe it, because the type of answers she's been given, or the way she talks when it's very informally, you realize it is somebody who doesn't have, I'm not saying that she's not intelligent, but she's not quick on her feet. She's not somebody that I think would fight for America with people like Putin and all the authoritarians that we have out there. I don't think so.
Sandra, thank you. Thank you for joining. I hope Tim addressed you a little bit. All right, let's bring in Bill. Bill, again, remind where you're from, who you're supporting, and ask away.
Bill Farley?
Yes, sir.
Oh, hi. Montana. In 16, I was third party. 20, I caucused for Yang in Iowa, voted third party, and I'll vote for Harris this time.
Who are you going to vote for in the Senate race?
Tester. I just put out my lawn sign.
Is Tester going to win?
I haven't seen many polling here in the local papers or the local news channels, so I'm not too sure, but it's going to be close.
And have you voted for a Republican for president before?
Yes. I worked in the Reagan administration back in the day as an intern and voted Republican quite a few years until I got the sense that the Republicans weren't acting conservatively at the federal level. Like I had hoped that the federal government would be able to be reduced and that most of the decisions would be at the state level, local level.
Are you voting for Harris because you like Harris or because you don't like Trump?
I don't like Trump. I would have voted third party again, but I think Harris has stepped up. The reason I didn't caucus for her in Iowa or go to her rallies or get her support her is she didn't take questions. She did a town hall instead of she did a rally instead of a town hall in our area. And that kind of turned me off, and that's why I went with Yang.
Did you live in Iowa then, or did you sneak over?
Yeah, I lived in Iowa at the time. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I thought we might have to report you to the authorities.
No, I've been moving around. I've been in California, Virginia, Iowa, now Montana.
Bill, tell us what's on your mind, question or comments.
So having lived in those states, I had a question just about immigration, because in California, Los Angeles, the Central Valley, Iowa, with agriculture, immigrants are an important part of the economy, documented, undocumented. And they're a big part of landscaping industry, restaurant industry. So I've never had a fear of immigrants. And so I see, for the folks that are against, or that's an issue, is it a fear issue? Is it, I just don't understand what the issue is, because it certainly doesn't impact us here in Montana, Virginia, California, in other states. It's more of a plus. And I've never seen the negative aspect of it. I haven't been in a border town.
Yeah, understood. Sean could talk about this for 2 hours. Sean, take 20 seconds, maybe.
I mean, I just look at it as a rule of law. I mean, you don't let someone into your house without, I don't know. To me, this is a simple question. It's not a fear. I completely agree with your statement about the economy, but we're a nation of laws. People can't just come in. As soon as you get rid of that, I mean, that's not to do with, I mean, there's a multiple aspects to the border, the drug issue in terms of fentanyl and other drugs, the criminal issue, the terrorism aspect. But I first and foremost, I look at it as a rule of law issue. I mean,
it's like an HOA issue kind of thing.
Well, I mean, in a very naive sense, I get your analogy, but I just don't understand. And frankly, we're more liberal than most of these other countries when it comes to how you become a citizen. But if you're not going to follow the law to come in, then why are you going to follow any of the other laws that we have? And if that's not the system, then you can't have a country if you don't have laws. And so I look at it fundamentally like this. I agree with you on the impact of the economy, but that's sort of like saying we need drivers on the road, so we'll just let everybody go without a license. It doesn't make sense. We have to have rules. Or
that works in Montana, if you need people working on the farm, you don't look for them to get a license. If they can drive the tractor, they drive the tractor. So I get your point. So I understand the rule of law piece of it. So I guess then for me, it would be, let's work on a path for citizenship for all these workers in an important part of the economy.
But yeah, again, I'll disagree with you, Bill. The answer is the system may be broken. And I agree with you. Like, we need a better system that prioritizes what we need in this country in terms of whether it's H-1B visas or oh my gosh, which is the J-1s that let kids in that want to work in restaurants. I mean, there's a way to do this, and the system admittedly is broken. But that doesn't mean that you just I mean, it's like saying that the restaurant has a horrible reservation system, so we're just going to run in and start sitting at seats. That's not how it works. Just because the system sucks doesn't mean you don't obey the law. And I think that we need to get back. I don't think that because you broke the law to get in this country, you become a citizen by default.
So
Bill,
my experience at the restaurant, there's not a big rush to everybody to get in, so it's, I just, my personal experience, I've never had a negative impact from immigration.
Yeah, lots of Americans have had negative impact. I'm glad you haven't. Bill, have you been on a lot of two-ways, or is this one of your first
Oh
ones?
yeah, no, I was there at I pretty much, I think, at the beginning.
Just tell us one sentence. What do you like about it?
I like I like the hope that that maybe through talking through issues, we can get through the polarization and have policy debates and maybe committee meetings where legislation is actually discussed in Congress like it was in the old days.
Bill, it's fantastic. You might make our promo video. Bill, thank you for joining. Some of you may remember the great country song, A Boy Named Sue. Well, here's a guy named Judith. It's actually Greg Kelly. Greg, close us out today. What's
my wife listening, by the way. And,
yes.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, Judith. Hi, Judith. Good to talk to you.
Look,
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, the moment that really resonated with me and disturbed me, and I can't shake, was when Tim Walz yanked his son as aggressively and harshly as he did. I'm sorry to bring it up, but I think a lot of people are talking about it. I imagine what would happen if Donald Trump yanked Barron in a similar fashion. It would be the talk of the mainstream media right now. It would have huge ramifications. I see that it's being glossed over, and I just think I'd like to get your take on it.
Yeah, well, let's get Minnesota's own Tim Hogan.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, in the spirit of trying to stay civil, I think the emotional moment with Gus was when he stood up and said, "That's my dad," crying, and that is what has broken through. I don't know what yanked him. I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean, you may want to look at it because it looks very harsh and it looks borderline abusive, and it's on stage, and we can ignore it. Everybody, just chooses what they like and discounts what they don't
Greg,
like.
Hold on one second.
Big deal.
Sean, do you know what Greg's talking about?
I do not. I will.
Greg,
if you send me a link, I'll take a look.
Out of fidelity to you, we're all going to take a look at it. But it's such a vast left-wing conspiracy media cover-up that none of the three of us have heard of it. And I was at the convention, but we're going to take a look.
Well,
we'll take a look.
May I just explain it to you very briefly?
No. We got to go because we're over time. But we'll take a look at it. We'll take a look at it. We'll make this a cliffhanger, and we'll talk about it tomorrow after we look at it. Monday. Sorry, Monday. Greg, thank you. I'm sorry, but we're a little bit over, and we're trying to end on time. Thanks to everybody who asked questions. We'll be back Monday, as Sean just suggested, same bad time, same bad channel, 9 Eastern. I'll be back probably later today at a time to be determined. The Delta Airlines will play a role in what time I'm able to do an episode. I may want to wait. Yeah, I may want to wait till after the Kennedy event with Trump if there is one. So it could be Friday Night Lights for tonight's episode. We'll see, but stay tuned. Watch my Twitter feed and my Substack if you want to be spending your Friday late afternoon or evening with me. But it won't be till late afternoon. Yes, sir.
Mark, if I can just personal plug here. I'm going to take your list. I've got James Blair, who's the political director of the Trump campaign.
That's a good booking. That's a good booking.
It is 6 p.m. tonight on my channel, but I'm on my YouTube channel. I'll have him respond to your states and see what he thinks. He'll break the tie.
Okay. So I bet he sides more with me because a lot of my reporting was with the Trump vote. So I look forward to that. Tim, what do you want to plug?
I think you should ask James Blair why he is tweeting that Kamala is an alcoholic. That would be an interesting one.
Did he tweet that?
He did tweet that.
Original tweet, or he retweeted something?
I will look at it, but he said that she has a drinking problem. So, I think that's a question worth asking.
Huh.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate Tim helping me out.
Tim, how did you find out about two-way? Just kidding. Thank you all for watching. If you're in Boston later, I'll be at Logan Airport trying to make my connection. So come and say hi. I'll buy you a beer at Legal Seafood. Have a great day, great weekend, and I'll see some of you probably later tonight. Thank you.
Bye-bye.